right. Very good afternoon, everyone. I think we have an exciting panel. Before we dive into that questions, so I'd like to share a couple of facts with what's going on with the cyber resilience in the intelligent age. So, can someone guess what's the cybercrime cost? It's a staggering number. Like, when I did my research, it came out like at $10.5 trillion. It's going to touch $10.5 trillion in 2025, and this was $3 trillion in 10 years back in 2015. That's massive, right? And if you look at the cyber attacks, the number of cyber attacks are doubled in 2024 compared to 2023. And of this cyber attacks, 41% of them are vendor-related or the third-party related, and which is a major concern for most of the major enterprises. And also, if you look at the cyber insurance, so 75% of the large companies has got cyber insurance, and if you look at small to medium, only 25% of them. So sometimes these companies are also the target for some of these hackers. And 29% of companies had some type of the other cyber attack, and close to 91% of the CISOs are expecting attack on their company in the coming years, right, in the next couple of years. So I think this is like, with all AI, Gen AI and everything, the landscape is like changing real fast. So we have an esteemed panel here. So let me jump straight into the questions. So first question, Animesh, to you. So with AI-driven cyber attacks, state-sponsored hacking, and deepfake-powered social engineering, right? What emerging threats that keep you at night, and how should enterprises prepare?
Thanks, Abba, for that. Firstly, good morning, everyone, and glad to be on a panel with the real superheroes here of cybersecurity world. Well, AI is a reality today, right? It's no more a myth. We use it for most of the things. But at the same time, it's also available to the bad actors, right? And hence you see the attacks are very sophisticated, the attacks are morphing, very difficult to catch hold of them with our legacy approach of cybersecurity. Well, at Palo Alto Networks, being the largest cybersecurity company, being a Fortune 500 company, we serve thousands and thousands of customers. And
can you keep the mic a little bit closer?
Yeah, sure. What we would like to advocate is that we need to have a platform-based, AI-driven, and automated approach to cybersecurity. No more the disparate solutions or solutions in silos make sense these days. So you need to have a completely unified, comprehensive platform when we're talking to when we're defending ourselves on cybersecurity. So when I say a platform-based approach, I mean, look at it like this. You have multiple watchtowers, but if they don't talk to each other and don't pass on the information, they're working in silos and there are gaps. That's where the bad actors seep in. And hence, your multiple solutions that you use, and study says that on an average you use 35, 40 different cybersecurity solutions in an enterprise. Now imagine you have so many screens to look at, you need so much of manpower which is trained to manage this, and with all this there are gaps which will emerge, and hence a platform is what will make sense going ahead, because these attacks are very, very sophisticated. Now this platformization, when I say, it's predominantly AI-driven, and AI will work best on nice curated data. And hence, getting all that data from different tools makes a lot of sense. What we do with one of our solutions, which is XIM, we get in all your data right from your endpoint, firewalls, multiple security solutions, get it, curate it, and then run AI ML models. So whatever attacks that we are seeing, state-sponsored and otherwise, you're in a much better situation and position to defend yourself and attack, because the visibility is there and hence you can do that. With this also, we bring in a lot of automation to that. A lot of mundane activities, a lot of incidents can be automated using a workflow, using our SOC automation platform and others. And then the analyst actually can spend time focused on the real attacks. So overall, with a platformization approach, having AI-driven being at the center of it and complete automation, I think that's where we'll all have to move towards to safeguard ourselves from these kind of attacks. That's my way.
That's great. I think definitely it's one of the viable solutions we should look at it. So I think next question, Rajesh, to you. Public-private threat intelligence sharing has been a challenge due to trust and liability concerns, right? So how can we improve collaboration without compromising competitive or legal boundaries?
Good afternoon, all. So I think there is one area that we had always, especially in the financial sector, I can say, as CISOs or the security professionals, we have actually gone with one slogan while working in the cyber world, is we compete for business, but we collaborate for security. I think all of us concur, right? Our businesses may disagree, businesses may have another plan to work out their product set, but when we are against the attackers, all of us are together. So that's one mantra that we have always been living with, especially in the banking sector and the capital markets. I've just come into the capital markets, primarily most of my time I have been in the banks. So the banking sector has always believed that with that, the CISOs of the banking community had an informal trust established amongst them, thanks to IDRBT for setting up an IB card. If you know, there is a platform which is there where information sharing does happen, right? That has been quite handy. It has certain benefits of attributing, or not attributing, but sharing the information. The typical question with the first you asked is private-public threat intel sharing, right? So I think it's working in different ways. There is a public to private threat information sharing that happens. All of us have subscribed to certain. All of us subscribe to NCIPC. Maybe more of the government bodies, the regulators, they are submitting some threat intel to us. Whatever they are able to source through Cyber Swachhta Kendra or search sensors or anything which is they are sourcing through various other feeds. So from public to private, there is a threat intel sharing that happens. But from private to public, and here when I say private, doesn't mean government owned or not. Private is non-government, the regulatory bodies I am talking about. It may be a public sector entity. When I say from these entities back to the public forums or these certs and all, it's only the incident information that flows. That's what the mandate is today, right? So it's not intel sharing for larger set of organizations. For some of the organizations, CERT, NCIPC, and some of them have put in their sensors wherein they ingest our threat intel, but in largely across maybe 100,000 entities in the country, it's only when incident happens, you are supposed to report it. So that asymmetric stuff is something which is causing this particular imbalance where the information sharing is not happening, and rightly because of the trust that comes in. I actually would suggest that as the country, we should go with the principle of FS-ISAC. If any of you have observed how FS-ISAC has captured information, or how do they create that membership platform in a way that voluntarily people can go and report incidents or potential incidents or any attack vectors without attribution fear. In today's world, if attribution fear is the biggest problem, if any entity goes and reports back as on these public forums, the first question will come from the regulator of the government body is, what did you do? What was the action you took? Why did it happen? So all that actually adds, it's important that they know, but that's for incident. If we take that on the principles of FS-ISAC, which says anonymity and no attribution to the disclosure, and that's something which has gone in their legal framework, which is the presidential mandate under which FS-ISAC was formed, which clearly has very clearly mentioned out that any member who is reporting that incident, he can even define when he's reporting any event or some threat intel, he can put a traffic light protocol on it. He can decide whom should this be shared with. Is it a public information? Is it confidential? Is it to be shared only with the requisite set of members? I think that framework would actually help us to be more open, to more be reporting without a fear that if I'm proactively reporting something, and even if I'm able to contain it, if the questions of plethora of questions are going to come back for challenging an organization or an individual, and again, all these are my personal opinions and not necessarily for any of my employer or employers that I've worked in the past. But this is our sectoral things which I think at a policy level, we have to see, can we evolve a similar framework? Just to quote an example, Singapore government has done it. Monetary Authority of Singapore has tied up with FSISAC to create a regional chapter. But there, whatever is being reported, the regulator or supervisors are not supposed to have access to. So that it becomes more open. Say if we publish even the events which is more for, oh, I observed something, I observed a phishing mail, probably I was able to trap, my defenses are good enough. But some other peer organization or any other smaller organization which doesn't have those set of defenses, at least can learn from here and quickly get that mitigated. That chain can only happen if the fear goes off that if I proactively report it, I will not be challenged. I will not be actually, it's same as if there is a FIR to be reported, can I just go and say, I saw something there, or if I just go and report something there, police wala bol, baith yaar tu idhar, baad mein baat karte hain. So that fear has to go off. I mean, that can only work out, and I have read through the FSISAC operating guidelines, and I really give kudos to IDRBT for setting out the IB card, which is quite similar to the FSISAC framework, but it's only for banking sector. It has to be emulated for across. It has to go in across the sector entities, while you can always do a correlation of it. So it's important to remove the, or tag the anonymity stuff, remove the attribution bit, and analyze it, rather than everything being reported is a reflection of a control posture of an organization. Moment we take that defense and create a trust ecosystem amongst us, we will actually be able to strengthen that, the relationship amongst the entities, and also the government bodies can report it. Just to add, even for the regulators and supervisors who primarily are not supposed to access, and this is not individual, it is the federal mandate in US, they say for this information, it is all between the entities. The regulator need not go into this, or supervisor need not have information of. But for information, for the regulators and the supervisors, there's a separate platform that is created for them to have an exchange of information flow. I think that those things, when we go in, especially in the regulated sector, with the fear of if I do this, what will happen? When there is no incident, there is nothing to be concerned, or the organization will be more proactive in reporting some of these things, and it actually helps the ecosystem at large. That's how I see it.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think what I noted is compete for business and collaborate for security is really awesome. A lot of companies actually bury the dead bodies of the attacks and everything, which if people knows about it, I think we can definitely make world a lot better. So Vinay, now I'll come on to you. So many boards still treat cybersecurity as an IT issue rather than a strategic business risk. So how are you influencing leadership to prioritize cybersecurity investments in an intelligence-driven world?
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. So again, we have seen actually changes of the maturity around how boards are seeing. So they are able to actually differentiate between cybersecurity and IT. So there has been changes which is being observed. It's not only due to regulatory governance, enforcement, but at the same time there are a lot of things in news focus on cybersecurity as a separate risk area altogether. From intelligence gathering as well as information sharing with the board members, I think it becomes very critical. It has to be more of a data-driven. And one needs to actually understand, so who all are members and what are their objectives. Once intelligence is available, if we can map in it to actually business objectives or business requirements, it becomes easy to convince or sell our objectives to the board members, wherein they can further consume and direct on certain things. I can give you just an example. So yesterday I was going through Twitter, I saw some resemble.ai, which was released, right? So wherein one can automatically actually spoof or come up with an same voice modulation. So I will directly go and I will map with my products wherein voice is being used as an input to authorize or authenticate or even for some level of consumption, and to ensure how I am going to maintain this integrity. And in this world of AI, the intelligence may be in a different form altogether. So one will be on a cybersecurity point of view, wherein restricting to cyber attacks, but functional level, I'm seeing a lot of fraud point of view, we will have to also evaluate. So for example, in phone banking itself, whether it can be misused or not, how you're going to model, whether solutions are available in the industry or not. So it has to be data-driven or maybe knowledge-based. If someone was attacked in the same sector or other sectors, what are the learnings? Based on those learnings, whether the gap assessments were carried out, what all controls we have, what are the maturity of those controls, converting them into metrics actually becomes useful while presenting it to the board, because they realize the risk where we stand from prioritization point of view, as well as from understanding, so what kind of threat it may give to the bank actually, or any other sector. So representation of these information to the board in visual format, in again, different cyber KRI metrics should be helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. That's really great. So Animesh, I'm coming to you. Nation-state cyber operations are, nation-state cyber operations are blurring the lines between corporate security and national security. So how should enterprises defend themselves when they become collateral damage in digital warfare?
Well, today's world, the warfare, I believe, is very different. It's no more fought on the battlefield, but rather cybersecurity and other things are add on to this. I don't think any organization can believe that since these are statewide, they're only going to attack other statewide operations. That's not how it works. And countries' asset is its business, right? So essentially, they try and attack your financial institutes, your other revenue-generating streams is what they would like to turn off the statewide attacks. And hence, it's very critical and imperative that we assume that this is going to happen. We are in a situation, say, a compromise, and look at a zero trust kind of an architecture, right, overall. We don't believe and we don't trust anything at all. That's one aspect of it. The other thing is readiness to these kind of attacks, right? Like we have a threat research wing called Unit 42. We aid a lot of our customers to get ready to these kind of things. Are you ready for a ransomware attack? Or how secure is your AD infra or anything else like that, right? So a regular readiness exercises are very, very critical so that you are there and you know what the gaps are, you can fulfill them, and you're in a better position to handle these attacks. Collaboration, as Rajesh ji mentioned, right, between organizations, information sharing, that's a very critical aspect of it. How quickly can we have a platform to do that? At our end, as an OEM, we try and do that. We see a lot of customers, so the threat information is quickly passed on to the rest of our customers. So that's one bit that we can do at our side of it. The other thing is AI adoption is increasing as well, right? So we see that the security of the AI part of your business is very, very critical. We are going to use more and more of AI, and how do we secure that? One of the simple things is at any given point in time, we don't even know in an organization what all AI functions are being used. So one, that visibility of what my end user is using on AI, only if you have visibility is when you can put in the balances and checks. So that's critical there. Once you have the AI, a sanctioned AI application, how do you control what my user is putting on to that prompt, right? Because this is all getting to become a public information and a way for other attackers to come in. So you try and control that. And then also the LLM models that you're going to use, do you have a posture management of these? Can you scan them and see if there are any vulnerabilities? So again, AI is very, very critical. As Palo Alto, we've been doing a lot of work there on Prisma, AIRS, and other solution. So all these things put together, I mean, at the end of the day, it's readiness that's very critical. And of course, your training to your end users, how they are aware of what they should not do, more importantly than what they should do, that becomes very critical, and of course, collaboration and other things.
Great. Thanks. Vinay, now next question is for you. So zero trust is a buzzword. I think we heard that in the last conference, and we keep hearing about this. So, but implementation still remains inconsistent, in my view, right? So what's your practical roadmap for achieving a true zero trust in a hybrid and a multi-cloud environment?
So there is nothing called zero trust actually. So you must have heard news of Ukraine or Russia day before yesterday. Okay, so whatever kind of security you have, so there will be some kind of trust we will have to build across. So we can call it near zero for sure. And to achieve near zero again, so the most important thing is identify your valuable asset to which actually you need to implement this protection. And the identities, one should have an inventory actually around the identities, be it form of service, user ID, or even API can act as an, again, source of critical entry point, okay? And protecting against these two areas, or have a multi-dimensional view around that. One may be at protecting the systems at network layer, at access level, right? Identity authentication, so be it on a non-human interface or even human interface integrations. AI and agentics coming into picture will become more complex when it comes to implementation of these trust as well, right? So for multi-cloud environments, has a integrations along with the endpoint controls, there are a lot of actually changes which are required. So basically, one can, again, move ahead with the application layer itself first. If the application is in compliant to zero trust requirements, actually it becomes very easy to enforce and implement on the perimeter as well as end user device point of view. So at least I'm expecting after DPDP, if there are certain enforcement on to achieve certain level of privacy level control at data layer itself. So there are many other solutions which are already in place, protecting perimeter authentication, be it in form of multi-factor authentication or device level authentication itself. So API reconciliation and its review, and again, ensuring the complete access management implementation on basis of rule of the API itself will become critical. So it's a multi-phase or multi-dimensional implementation which requires to reach that near zero phase.
Yeah, that's a very interesting view, Vinay. Yeah. So Rajesh, next question is to you. So I think I already touched upon these vendors, right? So high-profile breaches often originate from third-party vendors, right? So how are you ensuring supply chain resilience, especially when dealing with legacy systems outside your direct control?
I think it's a very difficult question. All of us are struggling, I know. Supply chain resilience is an objective, is a goal, is something which we all want to achieve. But there are a lot of challenges that come our way. I mean, I'll just share a few of the best practices that we have been picking up over the years, but hand on heart, all of us know that's one area which we all are concerned of. And it somewhere relates to the trust angle as well, right? So you have to trust the softwares, the partners. Any of that can lead to you going down. Okay, so the earliest I can remember, I mean, there are many breaches that have happened in the supply chain space. Target was the first one, which actually was an eye-opener. That HVAC path entering into a Target and card data breach of a significant metrics, right? So, but there are, I actually classify the supply chain issues into 3 categories. So when I say supply chain, I'm talking about the partners or the vendors or the support, the guys who are actually supporting an organization's ecosystem. So I see 3 kinds of typical incidents which can impact you. One, attack on a service provider but it impacts only him. So what indirectly you are impacted is that service is not available to you, right? Second is a mechanism where the partner is compromised and that becomes an entry point into your organization. That's typically we saw, and these are all decade by decade. The first one was prevalent even from 2000 to 2010, if I may say. Even today they are, but they are more impactful then. The second phase of when the impact on a partner becomes an entry point into your systems, that's the second kind of breach, a compromise of a supply chain, but you are impacted because the attacker is able to penetrate. A target was one of that. So 2010 to 2020 were more prevalent, those. After COVID, we see the third one which is coming in, which is the software supply chain. He is entering not through a victimizing your partner's system and entering. He gets embedded, or the attacker embeds the code in a software, and through the software he enters in. SolarWinds was one of the examples, right? There are a lot of such examples. I know in the banking sector there were some frauds that happened because of the supply chain cases, not to name the banks, but there were ATM, there were jackpotting which happened because of the same problem, right? So these are the three kind of issues. And the third one is the most difficult one to trap, because that's where you trust when you get a software upgrade, you get a release. Unfortunately, the incident which happened to CrowdStrike and Microsoft is an example of the same kind, right? So it's you're trusting it, it comes on, you say, boss, I need to upgrade my engines, it should be the latest patch, it should be the latest signature, but unfortunately there is something happening there which you don't know of. How do you protect it, right? So again, there is no right or wrong, there is no 100% answer, and I admit that nobody, according to me, can be very certain that, boss, I will have zero supply chain issue. There is a possibility of reducing it, right? So the challenges which actually come, and here I am talking of all the three kinds of incidents which I was just mentioning, the challenges which comes in is the governance bit. This is on, and all of us here would have a third-party information security management practices in our organizations. We would have an outsourcing committee, we would have somebody who is responsible of doing those periodic assessments, but the governance, the ownership of a vendor to be securely delivering solutions, that's something which I feel is largely split. That has to be tagged back with business. The business also has to own, because end of the day, as the third-party assessors, you guys are assessing, giving findings. When you go back to the vendor has two excuses. One, only you are asking, nobody else has asked for it. That's a typical excuse you will get. He'll say, no, nobody has asked. I have 5 other partners, other banks, other organizations. Everybody is doing the same thing. You are asking something different. There is a budget that I need. This is an investment that I need. So ownership of that should not be with the control function. It should be with the primary owner. There should be one owner in an organization which should actually drive that if this partner is serving me, he is meeting and remediating any observation that's coming our way. It's left out elsewhere. That's where the controls are left on the table and not getting mitigated in time. Second element, which is another challenge which we typically are facing, and parallelly I'm also saying what are the mitigations that we have been attempting to make, is on the visibility. It's very difficult to establish visibility on a supply chain path. On the suppliers as well, all of us, while whatever attempts we are making, we would have a calendar drawn out. We have prioritized. First, we have prioritized our vendors, right? I believe all of us are prioritize our suppliers. In that, we have a chart drawn out. Okay, I will go to this vendor once in a year, this vendor once in 6 months, maybe once in a quarter. Anything more frequent. And there's some which we'll say we'll only do a tabletop review. And unfortunately, those tabletop review are the ones which are giving us softwares. Are you agreeing with me? Because that's where we say, what will I do going in and sitting on his site? I will do this on-site visit only on the vendors where data is being shared with them. I want to understand the processing which is happening there. The risk in the today's era is on supply chain. What assurance do I have that the practices followed on the other side are reasonably good? Do I have visibility on their controls? So some level of certification, some level of assurances are required, and all of us are aware now with CERT and especially in the capital markets, the need for SBOM, right? The software bill of material. That actually is also from a perspective to be ready with the supply chain gaps. Like, for example, when Log4j came in, Log4j was a similar example. I mean, somebody breached a Log4j, it's an entry point. So when Log4j came in, I know for sure 80% of the industry, and here I'm not saying the vendor industry, the client side, were not even aware how much impact it is to them. Because nobody knew where Log4j is used. It's just one of those components in the stack of all the solutions that we all were having. So ask of SBOM is actually to be more preemptive and be ready for, if I come to know of any exposure in any of the supply chain components, I know this is at stake. So I'll be preempting some of those actions and getting remediations in place. So it's important to improve the visibility. Visibility may be point in time for something, but some other things, it needs to be continuous. I'll give you a few more examples where it's required to be continuous. You cannot just rely on a guy going down and picking up. You today, with all respect to ISO standards, I'm cognizant of what I'm saying. Somebody having an ISO 27001, there is a relative assurance I have that what level of controls he would have. Yes, he may have the best of controls, but does the certification mean everything he has? Sorry. It's an intent. If you ask the ISO auditors, they'll say, intent is there. Is the intent enough for us? No. What are the other things that we need? What are the assurances that we need? Maybe SOC 2 Type 2 in the space where it applies. So there are challenges, but we'll have to keep looking for more visibility in that space. Another area which I feel, which especially the banking sector, where the count of vendors sometimes goes into 3 digits, if not more. I mean, there are larger banks where it would be even in 4 digits. Being an earlier CISO of some of the larger banks, I have seen it cross 5,000 vendors. Not everybody is a digital vendor or a services vendor, but you have vendors, right? So how do I know which vendors I need to be cognizant of a cyber risk? Have I prioritized that? With that, do I have a attack surface monitoring of those vendors? Now one can say, why do I need to do that? Why do I'm doing my attack surface, but when I'm concerned on a supply chain, I also need to be aware of what is happening in their space, what sort of vulnerabilities and exposures are visible. I can give you an example. Sorry, I can just go on. I'll just take 2-3 more minutes. I know a case wherein this incident happened in a financial service provider vendor, where the compromise or the entry point was the vendor's HR system. And for sure, none of us would have gone to that vendor and did an assessment for comprehensive cycle. We would have only done what matters to us, the services that we have handed over. That's the only thing which would have validated. In this particular case, if you touch one-on-one, I'll touch base, I'll tell you the vendor name also, but it was the HR system. Through the HR system, the entry point came in and it landed up on the critical infrastructure which was serving a lot of banks. How do you get visibility? Am I having visibility from a attack surface perspective? Not that I'm promoting any of, and some of the vendors would be happy to hear that their attack surface visibility would help, but the vendor's attack surface visibility, if I have, say, 100 vendors who are critical for operations of a bank, I should have those 100 for a continuous monitoring. On a day-to-day basis, knowing their attack surface, knowing if there are any credential compromises of theirs, if there is any email compromises of theirs. Today, we do it for our own environment. All of us have digital monitoring tools. Am I doing it for my partners? Because if I do it for my partners, at least I will come to know if there have been compromises which can become an entry point into that supplier and indirectly hit me. So visibility need not only be coming from the assessments and the tabletop reviews and the discussions that we go on site. In today's world, a lot of visibility comes in from the threat intel which is available. We just need to tap it. It may not give us 100% assurance, but it should give us a reasonable assurance that if there is something in that organization which is breached or has caused a risk, is causing a risk, we come to know proactively. Yeah. The other area which also matters, and there are a lot of other things that typically can go in. Last one, which I think is another area which I want to conclude at, is the subcontracting. You have a vendor, we have reviewed a vendor. What about the subcontracting? That's called a fourth party. We typically stop at third party. Somewhere we go up to fourth party. But do we know there is a fifth party also? Because of this ecosystem stuff, this interconnection is making deep inroads beyond what you can actually think of. Think and see what can happen there. Can that fifth party cause me harm? Can that fourth party cause me harm? Did did I approve that fourth party providing me service through that third party? While it may look cryptic, but it is important. I gave something to Vinay and said, Vinay, you have to serve me. Vinay feels, oh, this doesn't make price sensitive. If my own guys do, I will outsource it. Then do I have visibility whom he has outsourced it? Do I get the same control posture from that subcontracting guy? If I don't, I'm actually inviting trouble. So have the chain built up and get that assurance embedded in the contracts. It's important that the ownership doesn't only come from an individual, it's the organization which owns it. It has to be documented, incident reporting has to be prompt. While there will be always a challenge, but since we have to report in 2 to 6 hours, how quickly can we know if there is anything happening in that space? So there are a lot of things that we can do to improve this, but again, whatever controls I say or you, even in your own introspection, look at, I still believe the residual risk in a supply chain, the software supply chain or the supply chain resilience, are much more than in any part of other resilience programs that you would be running in your environments. That's my personal opinion.
Well, that's fantastic. Actually, if you look at a lot of enterprises, focus on third parties, definitely low, and there is an opportunity to improve the coverage on that. So I have a question for all the panelists. We'll go one by one. Maybe, you have the mic, Rajesh, you can start. The CISO role is expanding beyond tech into risk, legal, and even PR, right? So what skills will the next generation CISO needs to thrive in the intelligence era?
I think it's simple. While being a CISO for almost, I should say, 15 years, I feel when I started this tag of taking a CISO role, I believed a CISO has to be a technical guy. Any guy from IT can be picked up and be made a CISO, he can survive. That's what I used to think maybe a decade and a half back. Today, it's not the case. CISO, being a technical guy, is just one attribute of it. If he can't articulate, if he can't speak the language of business, if he can't speak the language which board wants to hear, he will feel out of place. The language, it's not that he learns Hindi, Punjabi, English. He needs to learn the language of that organization, the language which the respective stakeholders want to hear. I think that's very, very important. Other element which have actually evolved over the years is playing with numbers. So again, if I go back 2 decades back, the CISO's role was typically a gatekeeper or a toll gate, if I may say. Anything going in, you say yes or no, full stop. There's no questions asked. Today, with all the digital interconnections that we are living with all the risks that we know we have to live with, right? The appetite changing, pre-COVID, post-COVID, the risk appetites in your own organization have changed. Think over what you would have approved 7 years back. Many of you would have said, no, work from home, no way. I see a lot of risk there. But the risk appetite changed. So one is you have to speak the language of risk. You should be able to articulate risk. You should also be a guy who can negotiate controls. I think it's very important. It's no way my way or highway. It doesn't work today. You have to be on the side of the business. Again, with the catch, you cannot be always a business. We want to be a business enabler, but not that you will be responsible for business. So it's important that you have those traits, you understand the business, you collaborate with your own stakeholders. Because if you're talking to them, if you're agreeing on the problem statement, if you make them part of the problem that you are facing, you will get better solutions. It cannot be just worked out and sitting in one place and say, I will decide it. That's not what the CISOs today are required to be. So socializing, stakeholder management, conflict resolution, negotiation skills, regulatory understanding of regulations, and articulating it back to both who requires it. If you're talking to the business, you're talking in business language. If you're talking to regulator, you are also understanding what his expectation is. It has to be a stitched out role. It's actually a complex role, to be honest, and it's a burnout role as well. So I also request all your CISOs and all those guys who are working in security professional, please take care of your health as well. So we are all burning out, I know. We have to balance a lot of, it's not, and I typically use this, it struck me that we are actually a seesaw. Sometime on the business side, sometime on the control side. Okay, so we keep playing this role pretty often, right? So, but make sure that you are healthy and you're taking care of yourself very well. Organizations, yes, are important. All metrics are important, but not as important as, so one skill you have to also put up foot fitness in your regime as well. All the best.
So very well said. Vinay, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Rajesh. So almost all points covered. In addition to that, so one thing actually I'm observing as part of this journey, okay, so ready to accept the changes and understand the new risk or emerging risk arising out of it. Learn from others' failure, okay, that gives a lot of visibility and prepared, you get an opportunity to prepare yourself and take things forward in terms of maturity at your organization. So CISO at bank and few other places are fiduciary role. Actually, you're responsible directly for customer. You're directly responsible on behalf of regulator as well. Additional thing which I'm observing is there are a lot of enforcement discussions which happens with CISO or even the third party, or even now customers specifically ask for direct interaction with the CISOs and investors. So prepare yourself what kind of queries will come, what kind of legalities are there, what exactly your policy is meant in reference to the external agencies, not limited to your organization. You have certain responsibility to your peers as well and the ecosystem. Apart from that, on basis of recent geopolitics, I feel all CISOs can play very critical role in terms of state level preparedness. They can act as an agent for national security, which I strongly feel. And of course, as Rajesh added on health piece, so even I'm trying to take it forward. Okay, so it becomes very difficult though. So yogas and all other thing. But yeah, so the prerequisites or the skills are changing. It's quite dynamic. The expectation from board are dynamic and management is totally different. So understanding of regulatory legalities are also additional key to be a successful CISO, because you will have to represent organization in some shape format, and specifically as I was referring DPDP Act earlier, so Rule 6 is automatically the CISO's responsibility, you will see in most of the organizations.
Right, thanks. And we'll conclude with Animesh and then have your questions ready. Right, we have a couple of minutes to ask any questions. Go ahead, Animesh. Go ahead.
On the,
Yeah.
I mean, look, the practitioners have spoken, so as an outsider, how I look at it and over a period of time, how that role has importantly changed. It's, of course, the regulatory aspect of it, the policy making, all that remains, but the CISO has a board seat at the board. That's because it has become an inherent part of the business. The businesses are growing faster. The technology adoption is humongous. The businesses are actually, these are all technology companies, by the way, also doing banking kind of a situation, right, today. And hence that CISO's role becomes very, very critical. I mean, to me, it's somebody who balances that risk and the speed of the business and agility there, right? The person who decides what's that risk to adopt something and what's not, and how to make it more easy and faster. As Rajesh ji and Vinay ji said, it has to be supportive to the business, but balancing it each ways.
That's great. All right, I think with that, we have a couple of minutes. Anyone has got any questions for the panel? Okay, we have a few hands. Can we get the mic, please? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Subra has flagged a very pertinent challenge when he says involvement of nation-state actors in compromising networks, and especially of the banking sector. And Animesh also agreed that yes, there is a possibility of doing that. And the panel has discussed threadbare the risks which are associated with the supply chain. But I come from an organization which hesitate to outsource quite a few cybersecurity functions. I'm referring to defense. In my opinion, the true resilience into a cybersecurity ecosystem would only come if we have a response strategy, which, as I initially said, that it is automated, I mean, maybe AI-driven, automated response strategy. Unless you have a very fast response strategy, probably it will be next to impossible to achieve cyber resilience. That's what I wanted to just supplement your that. So if somebody can throw some light on the response strategy in particular, when you're outsourcing your cybersecurity functions.
Totally agree. Right? I think now it all depends on the architectures that you all follow, and also depends on even with the vendors, right? Saying multi-vendor strategies, right? So there's so many things, our ability to detect, and then a chance of occurrence, and then how quickly we can respond, these kind of things. There are multiple factors that are involved, so that we understand the exact issue. So you want to add anything?
No, it's a very good point. So primarily software supply chain and supply chain, when we were mentioning, I think that one point I missed out, but it's very important that the response strategy is not only documented and agreed, also is replayed multiple times. You simulate it. Make them part of your integrated BCPs. When you do your BCP, involve a partner ecosystem failure and see how quickly can you be back on your feet, what are the challenges that are coming in. So all those tabletop reviews or the technical drills, whenever these are being done, it's 100% that you need to have. It's also important to vet out their crisis management plans. What crisis management do they, what sort of reporting escalation structure do they have? I think one area which we used to do in my previous organizations, we used to do a vendor connect day, wherein we used to invite all the critical vendors to an office, or during COVID phase, it was typically online. And we used to invite the people who matter in this industry, maybe from threat intel partners, maybe from response side, maybe forensic analysts, to come and tell them what typically is going wrong elsewhere and how the industry should be more prepared, so that we are preempting them, because many of them don't understand, they don't have those level of skills and the tech stacks. But at least if they are cognizant of the rest, they will be proactive in doing. So that's an inclusive ecosystem, and very thankful to you to bring up that point. It's very important that it's not only technology, it's not only assessments. We have to be mentoring many of these suppliers. We also need to be careful of what is happening. If that happens, then what? Is it documented? Is it agreed? Is it replayed? And one other point which also matters, and thanks for highlighting that, is especially for the vendors who are critical to the country, not individual banks or individual organization I'm talking about. There are vendors who are systemically important to sectoral security. Those, my submission has been time and again to the government bodies, that we should look for some level of certification, some level of accreditation to those service providers who provide services to the critical sector, so that there is some level of minimum assurance that is maintained when these guys are brought in. Otherwise, every organization will fight its own battle and say, oh, I have found these problems, you sort it out. He finds another problem and sort it out. So I think that's another area which some policymakers should actually get involved and see if these are 100 vendors who are critically important from a CII perspective, critical information infrastructure perspective, so that there is lesser possibility of things going wrong in that space.
Actually, you mentioned somewhere that role which is played by the FINSEC, and I would, if somebody is here from NCII PC, the certification which is required for these third-party vendors or fourth-party vendors, as you said, so that they have that requisite competence which is testified by some certification body for implementing cybersecurity.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very true, sir, very true. That's what it is the last.
Yeah. So we have time for one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. So whoever is the lucky winner.
Yeah, hi. This is Ruba from JP Morgan. I have a question to Rajesh, sir. What exactly the framework in the cybersecurity we are using in NSC, and what adaptation we have made comparing to the global standards specifically for the India context.
Second part of it, what framework I understood, then
yeah. What adaptation we have made for the India context?
For the
adaptations.
Indian
What?
context.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's an Indian organization. So, I mean, we primarily are indigenous in all the policy frameworks that we follow. But here, I also admit I am a big fan of NIST. Okay, so I take a lot of learnings from NIST, and it's not in this organization. In our last 8-10 years, since 2016, when RBI first came up that you should have a cyber security framework, at that time we were thinking, what is the difference between information security and cyber security? Right, so but that NIST had come up with the CSF, so we picked up, and yes, then I moved to Access, I implemented it there, and in NSE I fully admit that yes, we are aligning it to the NIST framework. On top of it, we also have a regulatory framework which is now issued by SEBI, which is a cyber security and cyber resilience framework. Okay, so that CSCRF is a guiding factor for us to ensure that all the recommendations that come from it, at least those are there. In my experience as working in the critical infrastructure, I typically believe compliance-driven security is not enough. While you may have these frameworks which can only give you guiding stuff, you should also be looking back into your strategic plans and the proper strategic risk assessments. What threats matter to you? Your threat and vulnerability assessments should actually tell you what you need to improve upon, basis which you have to tweak these in your environment. It's not a copy-paste. It's just not one size fit all. And your tool stack may be a little different than what your regulator asks, but at least make sure that you have what the regulator asks. Otherwise, your license is at stake. And this is for all of us. All the banks, all the capital market entities, or for that matter, any regulated entity, first wants to believe is whatever regulator has said, am I at least minimum there? My only submission is let's not stop there, and let's not also be carried away, and sorry my friends from the vendor community, let's not also be carried away when they come back and say, boss, things can just fall flat. Okay, evaluate what risks matter in your environment. See what, say like for NSE, the kind of risk and threat that I see in NSE is totally different than what I see in banks. Banking sector was more B2C, where consumer was deciding, and then frameworks were built out to ensure that the secure transactional services are happening. On the NSE side, I am more B2B. I ensure, while indirectly there is a C behind, which is behind the brokers or the member institutions, but I primarily ensure is that the platform is secure. It's quite similar to a fintech. NSE is actually an IT company, so which does play a significant role in the capital markets, but it's a platform. So I need to ensure that the platform is resilient, it's able to withstand, because I don't get the same window what I get in banking side. Banks may, if you are not able to do it on A bank, you can go to B bank and do a transaction. But I don't get the leeway in NSE. So say 90% or 80% of the stock trades are being hitting on NSE. So resiliency is very important. Important area which also comes up many a times, and that has made me rethink on how I implement is the latency bit. The latency in banks, you can live with the millisecond or a second of latency. Here, we today talk in microseconds, while our boss has been asking us to talk in nanoseconds. So, I mean, if you go to that space, you have to think how do you put security in without causing that latency. That's a bigger challenge that we today are trying to balance out. And that's where I hope when quantum comes in, what Vinayak was explaining, may be significant game changer in the way the things will happen in the exchanges.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Rajesh, Vinay, and Animesh. It's a fantastic discussion. I learned a lot. So appreciate it. Back to MC.